Jeb Smith, broker owner of Coastal.
10 years. Started in 2014, Josh. It's been a long time, my friend. Anyway, guys, welcome back to another Wednesday, the Educated Homebuyer Live, where Josh and I answer your mortgage and real estate related questions to help you become the educated homebuyer. Josh, why are you looking like that? Is the mic?
Are you getting feedback over there?
I'm not.
Usual, we're having some tech difficulties over here. So
I'm not getting any feedback.
No feedback?
No,
okay.
Not on my side.
Okay.
Is it if
I'm having to use my speakers? The headset's not working.
Got it. All right. Well, guys, let us know if it's not working properly. That would be helpful. Or if it is, better yet, just give us a one in the chat if everything sounds like it's supposed to, and then we'll kind of get into the show here in just a minute. While we're doing that, Josh, not really a lot's changed week over week with regards to data. We have some important data coming out this Friday. We had a little bit today, which didn't really shake the markets too much. Kind of ended more or less where we started. But Friday's PCE, which is an important day this week. But on top of that, we got a little bit of changes in not necessarily Jerome Powell, not necessarily the current Fed administration, but some of the previous Fed members are talking how they feel like it is now. Now, July is the time to start cutting rates versus September. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as well. So Josh, we got ones. We're all clear across the board. Anything you want to add before we dive into some charts?
No. Got to have a great Monday night. We saw Sarah Shook and the Disarmers at a lovely little hole-in-the-wall bar in Costa Mesa. We were overserved, too much Jameson. So don't do that on a Monday night. That's my advice for the week.
That's good. You should have ended the show with advice. We typically like to give the advice at the end of the
pearls
show.
Of wisdom to
because now you've given them the good stuff. They might not even stick around. But anyway, let's do what we always do, and that is start with some charts here, Josh. But give me 1 second. I'm going to pull something up, and that is going to take me into that. So we like to look at inventory. Inventory is the telltale sign, right? It's the tail that wags the dog, if you will. 600. No, that is not right. That is last week's numbers, Josh. I don't.
Did you bring the wrong one in? Did you bring in?
I might have brought the wrong one in. Give me 1 second here just to make sure.
We're going to have to edit the slides on the fly. I don't know if we're able to do that.
No, the slides are correct. My data's not correct. I don't believe that's the issue here. It says we have 653,000 single family homes. That's actually not correct. We're currently sitting at, where are we sitting, Josh? This kind of screwed everything up here because the information is not correct. So we're sitting right here. We're sitting at 668,000 single family homes on the market, which is up from last week, sitting at 651,000. The peak this year is where we currently sit. So if you guys have been following along for the last couple of weeks, inventory has actually trended down a little bit. Primarily due to the holiday season, right? Primarily due to that, Josh, you're clicking, I'm clicking, you stay still there.
I'm not clicking.
Oh, you're not clicking. Primarily due to that time in the market, right? Around the holiday season. Either way, we've got the wrong chart in here. That's essentially what it comes down to, Josh. We're looking at 653 versus where it should be sitting at 668,000. So that's last week's slide. More importantly, inventory is growing. That's what you need to pay attention to, but it's not growing meaningful enough to be concerned. Again, we're getting some of that holiday inventory that didn't pop to the market over the last couple of weeks. It came to the market this past week, which is why we saw inventory jump like it did. OC currently sitting at 3,301 active properties on the market. That's up just less than 1%, 0.64% week over week. Nothing really too concerning there. Huntington Beach up 1.48% week over week, sitting at 203 listings on the market. Again, still very, very low for Huntington Beach. Orange County is looking a little bit better, but seasonally speaking, in a more normal market, take the average 2017 to 2019, we'd probably have 6,500, 7,000 homes on the market this time of year. So still less than half of what we would normally have. New listings week over week sitting at 71,000. I'm going to go through these slides, Josh, because quite frankly, I don't know if I pulled the wrong slides in from the previous week. That That is the issue. So we know that new listings grew week over week. I just don't know if this is the right information. So I'm not going to go to
Jeb. Bits of Interest has the comment of the night so far. It says maybe in 2025 you can fix your data.
Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. I mean, maybe I'm not around in 2025 to fix the data. This is what happens when you have multiple things going on at one time. You just kind of you jump through and you pull some things in, and when they're all labeled the same thing, occasionally you grab the wrong slide, and I think that's part of the problem. Is every single week I label them the same thing. Sometimes I forget to delete the old ones and end up pulling in some of the older slides. So we went over this chart just a little bit ago, but we got weekly new contracts pending. This is showing 68,000 new contracts pending. Again. I don't know if this stuff's right, Josh. I'm gonna jump through it. I'm gonna come back while you're doing your slides. I'm gonna come back and make sure this is correct.
Confirm that you gave the correct information versus.
Yeah, actually, no. This is not. This is. Did I pull in the whole wrong thing, or not? Anyway, that would be awesome if I pulled in last week's stuff. Anyway, percent of properties with price reduction sitting at 39, almost 40% of homes on the market, which is a little bit higher than this. That's why I know this slide is not correct. So if you're joining us for the first time, you probably think we're a bunch of morons on the show, which is completely understandable at this point. And that's because the wrong slides got pulled in. But nevertheless, Josh, we're going to transition and look at existing homes sales, which is some of the data that we got this past week.
And really the only thing I wanted to show here with this chart, Jeb, is the red bars. We're down. So every month we keep getting these wonderful headlines. Existing home sales reach a new low. They do. That is true and factual, but you can see we're bouncing around the bottom here at this 4 million annualized sales. So got another read. June was probably the worst of the year, but that also translates to 60 days ago. Most of those were going under contract when we had rates at their highest levels of the year. So going back to that inventory, Jeb, I like to point this one out. Everyone goes through these charts or shows the data and shows, oh my God, we're up. So if you look at this chart, that blue line showing the year over year change, that we're up 30% in inventory. Yes, true. But until you break this long-term downtrend and show me not only back to 2019, I mean, we need, 25% more listings, 30% more listings to get back where we were at in 2019. But that long-term downtrend is still an issue. People, current tenure in a home reached 11 years. So I don't know if it's an all-time high, but the highest it's been in a long time. People are not moving. They are hunkering down for many, many reasons. So we don't have much inventory. So it's important to keep context. Yes, this is factual. This is accurate. We are seeing a big year-over-year increase, but the actual number still is an alarming downtrend in terms of the volume that we have. Jeb, we love to hammer here on median versus repeat sales indexes. So the new home builders, they report in new home sales their median, and it reached a low here down, I think it was $10,000 year over year. Very important to remember. I looked for the quote, I couldn't find it. One of the reports that I follow, he goes through the home builders, their quarterly reports when they're doing investor conference calls, and they had mentioned that just really simply, like we've talked about here on the show, they're making slightly smaller homes, slightly less upgraded homes. So it's not that people are paying less for the homes. They are getting less for the dollars that they pay, unlike with existing homes. The existing home inventory is what it is. So if you see a change in that price, when the median moves, it's oftentimes the mix of sales. This here is actually what builders are doing and bringing to market. Thought this was interesting. Jeb, got a quote from Chris Maloney at BOK Financial. He dug out this little nugget that says of the 293 months since the end of 1999, so a little less than 25 years, only 3 months have seen the median price of an existing home higher than that of a new home. The only other two instances, so we had this here recently, the only other two instances were seen in June of 21 and June of 2005. Both times the price of existing homes dropped by about 2% over the following 6 months. So we see inventory creeping up. Affordability has remained low. It's muting demand. Still crazy people out there telling you that means a housing crash is coming. But what Jeb and I have been talking about definitely will be a leveling if we don't get an increase in affordability, which is most likely to come from interest rates improving if it comes at all. But in terms of looking at that, this was an interesting piece of data, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 6 months.
On that same note, Josh, when you mentioned new home sales, calculated risk this morning, not the quote you're looking for, but kind of follows up with what you were saying, basically said that the median and average price are down from the peak to the mix of homes sold, not because of large price declines. Home builders are building less expensive homes to keep up with volumes. So essentially saying exactly what you said, but in his words. So,
well, it's good. Supporting documentation.
Yep.
I like it. So this one, Jeb, we actually, the podcast that came out yesterday, we were talking about the headlines that people see. Oh, delinquencies are up, delinquencies, this, that, the other. And the day we post it, then this headline pops up.
They copied us, bro. Trendsetters.
Jumps in June, but there's a simple explanation. So June's anomalous shifts notwithstanding, overall mortgage performance remains historically stout, according to ICE, who reported this data. Serious delinquencies were still down 8.5% annually and down 10.1% from below pre-pandemic levels, even after a 5.1% month-over-month gain. That month-over-month gain, if it bleeds, it leads. That's the headline that you're seeing, but largely due to June ending in a Sunday. So their explanation here is when a month ends in a Sunday, loan payments made on the last day of the month aren't processed until the next business day, the first day of the next calendar month. Subsequently, stark but temporary spikes in delinquencies accompany such months. So always fun to read the details behind the headlines. I ran out of time myself here with my slides. Jeb, I did get the GDP data in here. So we get the first look at Q2 GDP tomorrow. It will get revised 2 more times as more data comes in and is tabulated. For the first quarter, we were at 1.4. We're seeing estimates. I had 3 different good sources saying anywhere from 1.9 to 2.1%, which is below what our economy needs to grow and sustain and build. But it is still positive and not recessionary. Strangely, Jeb, this we talk about the Atlanta Fed. They do this GDP now. It's a nowcast. So they are pulling in all of the data. So you would think by the time we get to tomorrow, the data is going to be announced, that this would be pretty darn accurate. But as of yesterday, they're projecting 2.7, 2.8%, right, while the expert consensus has sort of got to that 1.9, 2% level.
Yeah. So earlier I mentioned PCE being the only data this week. You got jobless claims tomorrow and GDP tomorrow. So both of those are potential market movers to some degree. But like we've talked before, a lot of these numbers are calculated in a way, especially with GDP, that they have a pretty good idea of where it's going to come out. But it's the deflator, right, Josh, that's in there. That
data carries over into Friday's PCE. So we almost get an advanced look. So we may see more trading tomorrow versus Friday on that PCE. We saw a downside surprise on PCE last month. It's looking like the nowcast is showing a pretty benign month. And if the data tells us that tomorrow, we could see some improvement of the market moving ahead of time. Jeb, this is one of the newsletters that come across. One of the programs, a guy that I followed for a long time, that really a high-end mortgage advisor. But this was a cool chart. You guys, if you're interested, go download the slides that Jeb puts in the description, and you can actually see this because it's pretty dense. But basically, that line just shows what a $1,000 payment becomes if rates go from 10% down to 0%. Not that they would, but you can see at 8%, an $850 payment, if we go back to say 5%, is now a $600 payment, almost a third improvement there. This also shows if we took $113,000 and $951 loan amount at 10%, if rates drop to 0%, you could borrow $360,000. But again, if we see something in that 5% range, you go from a $113,000 loan to almost a $200,000 loan with the same amount. So if you're interested, I thought it was a cool chart and interesting there. Jeb, this is what's got the attention. Again, we get headlines, short-term rates are up, rates bump up, rates going up. And this line, that is accurate. We have seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trading days there where we've gone the wrong direction. But we went from a low of about 415 to 428. So about 1/8 of a percent, 0.125 worse in interest rates, and still well contained with our green downtrend. So if we zoom out a little bit and look at this, that 3-month downtrend is still very much intact. The first orange line is the one that we drew last week where we were hoping to hold at 425. So in the last last week, we went from 425 to 428. It kind of gave way and got worse. We could make a run all the way up to the green line, but you'll notice the green line is coming down day after day. So we're not far from it already. So our worst case is probably about 4.3 on that 10-year, barring really hot GDP, really hot inflation in terms of PCE, and the downtrend still keeps moving. I didn't have time to pull the Mortgage News Daily numbers, but they're still reporting under 7%, 6.9 on the 30-year fix, which is up 0.07% over the week, and FHA and VA at 6.35. As always, well-qualified borrowers are going to do a little bit better than that, and your down payment, your credit score, all that is going to dictate what it looks like.
All right, good stuff. So what we're going to do, guys, we're going to start back at the beginning of the show, and I'm going to give you the data that doesn't match the chart on here because I clearly put in the wrong chart.
So you're still going to show them the wrong chart, but
I'm
you're
going to show them the wrong
right
chart,
number?
but if you're listening, you're going to get the right data, okay? Because the chart, the direction of the chart essentially stays the same. So what happened was we ended the week 668,000 single-family homes on the market, 16,000, that's a 16,000 single-family unit gain for the week, which is the biggest that we've seen all year, and 39% more homes on the market than a year ago. Those are the important things there. New listings. So new listings, 69,000 new listings, 69,000 new listings unsold this week, plus another 15,000 immediate sales, 84,000 total sellers this week, only 3% more than last year at this time, which takes us into new contracts pending. So new contracts pending, 62,000 in new sales pending, 9% fewer home sales started this week than the same week in 2023. Why? Affordability, rates, all of those good things. Median price of single family homes, 450,000, unchanged from the last week and from last year. Essentially, that data stayed the same week over week. And then, as we mentioned here, with price reductions, 38.6%. I said 39%, which is essentially the highest level that we've seen all year, and obviously pretty normal for what we're seeing in the market. So hopefully that provides a little bit of clarity there, Josh, in those that are watching. And now it's the time of the show where we answer questions. Josh mentioned earlier that we recorded an episode this week on the Educated Home Buyer podcast where we talked about delinquencies. We talked about essentially why delinquencies aren't a problem. And so if you're one of those people that believe that, foreclosures are coming, that the delinquencies are just at the beginning stages and everything's about to fall apart and prices are going to crash, I would encourage you to listen to it. Just provides a little clarity. It's based on data. It's not our opinion. It's literally out there based on factual information. So take it, use it, and hopefully put yourself in a better position if you're considering buying a home. With that, Josh, do you see any interesting questions? Well,
Jeb, they could just listen to the podcast and then go to cocktail parties and backyard barbecues and impress their friends with their Cliff Clavin-esque data knowledge.
They could, unless they listened to the beginning of the show, then they would be thoroughly confused. Because they would be like, that's the data from last week. What are you talking about? And they would say, we saw it online and this guy's been doing this for 10 years. And they'd be like, well, that guy's a moron. And all of those things would be true, all of them. But it'd be better just to get the right information. So next week we'll have it. So tune in next week. Next week, we're going to give you the actual information the first time. Bits of Interest says, is inventory growing because they are asking too much? You can sell anything at the right price. Yes and no. Most sellers aren't in the position of lowering their price to a point where every seller is a willing buyer. For example, I'm going to use Vern. Vern's a listener of the show. Vern is, I have his property in escrow, hopefully as of today. So Vern's property's now been on the market for about 40 days. And you could look at that and go, it's overpriced. Why is the home sitting on the market for 40 days? Some could say that. Others could say it's a unique property that is looking for a specific buyer because of the area that he's located in. Most of the lots are what we would consider double-sized lot. His lot is half the size because somebody split the lot at some point in the past. And so his 11,000 square foot lot, or the initial lot, became 5,700 feet. And so it's all zoned R4 in that neighborhood. So you can do units, you can do all kinds of different things there. So you would look at that and go, well, it's overpriced. It hasn't sold. Well, lo and behold, we got an offer pretty close to the asking price, that original asking price today. And it's a strong, solid offer. And we could have done a number of things in the past, but it was more or less trying to find the right buyer for that property, willing to pay the price that we're looking for at the right time. So yes, you're right. You can sell something by always lowering the price to a point where there's more buyers interested, but you want to stay as close to the comparables as possible and be patient to some extent, because it sometimes it is finding the right buyer in unique situations like this. But inventory is growing primarily because listings are sitting on the market longer. Now, are they sitting on the market longer because they're overpriced? Or are they sitting on the market longer because of seasonality? It's the summer. Inventory typically grows this time of year. Or are you seeing more inventory sit on the market longer because it's coming at a higher price point? And the higher price point is driving up listings when the stuff that's at a lower price point is actually going into escrow. All of those things are true. So just understand what you're looking at, understand the data locally, and then make the best decisions from it that you can.
It's almost a chicken or the egg thing, Jeb. When I saw the question, the thing I was going to point out is we're not seeing, so inventory is increasing, but we're not seeing record levels of inventory coming to market. We're seeing low levels of demand, and the low levels of demand are pretty obvious as to why. It's not that people decided they don't want to buy and own homes anymore. You can go look at the comments on most of our videos. Someone said, what am I going to do? Go buy a $1.5 million shack? Comments like that. People are not super happy with the level of affordability of how much money they need to have and what it takes to qualify right now. So it's really more an affordability issue impacting and limiting demand, in which case you might say, so if prices came down, they would be more affordable, and then therefore we wouldn't have as much supply. You could say that, but as Jeb said, most realistic sellers who have a long view and are in the right price range, they'll get their home sold. It's just taking a little bit longer. And Jeb, we talked about, Simonson did his video from Altos of what happens as rates go lower. They don't know any more than we do, but pretty good conjecture there that it will put a floor under prices, and it will bring faster absorption of the inventory that's coming to market. And we don't have an exorbitant amount of inventory that's coming online. So no one really knows, but all of it sort of leads us to believe that we're just going to be trending sideways for the foreseeable future, whether that's in terms of prices, transaction volumes, all of that fun stuff.
Good stuff. Yeah. Existing homes. I mean, we're sitting at like 3.9 million sales on an annualized basis. In fact, one of my mentors had a webinar this week where he said, he forecasted at the beginning of the year 4.6 million sales. And in his webinar this week, he says we're right on pace for that. And I think, how are we right on pace for that? We just came out at 3.9 million existing home sales. Maybe he's counting everything in there with regards to those numbers. But nevertheless, 4.6 is still a bit high. Based on where we are at the moment. So unless interest rates come down.
Let's kind of stay on the same topic. The same data leads to the same direction. Proud liberal back here. So is price leveling off or dropping? And before, I'm going to let you answer that first,
Yep.
But let's also preface this. There's no such thing as a national home price. So the answer is yes. It depends on where you're at. So when someone asks you, are prices leveling off, cooling off, dropping, what are we seeing nationally and then in certain specific local markets?
Nationally, it depends. Again, you said it, like real estate's local, right? So some of the markets, Florida, Texas, some of these markets where inventory is growing substantially back to 2019 levels, we're seeing prices definitely level off, and in some cases go back down a little bit, right? They're retreating a little bit. We posted that chart a week or so ago from Resi Club that showed the market's appreciation since 2020, and then their drop since the peak in 2022. And you had some of the markets, I forget, Knoxville or one of those markets was up 70% still to the day. I mean, so crazy. Whereas you have some markets like Austin and some of these have seen a pullback in prices, but still up since 2022. So it all depends. But what I will say locally, what I'm seeing, Orange County is a bit of an anomaly to some regard, just because of the money here. the amount of people still wanting to be here, et cetera. Prices leveling off more so in the higher luxury space. I think you're seeing more of that, right? Because we've talked about it before. A lot of those people make their money in the stock market. A lot of those people have money invested. They're waiting to see what's happening election time before they go out and buy multi-million-dollar properties. Now, that's not everyone. That's many. But on the same token, I put an offer for a client 4 or 5 days ago, $1 million price point. Property probably should have been priced $1,030,000-ish, in my opinion. We put an offer to $1,075,000. We were all cash. Come to find out, we were one of 5 offers. 3 of them were cash. So 2 others are cash besides us. And we were in the top 2 running for that property. We didn't get it. We were $75,000 over the asking price. You might say, well, it's priced low. Okay, there's something to that, but it wasn't priced $75,000 low. And we didn't get it, and somebody bid above us. So you could go a step further and say, yeah, prices in that particular neighborhood, are still going up, right? So real estate being local, just understand your market, understand your price point, because that matters. You could be in the same market. You can be in Huntington Beach. If you're looking at buying a $8 million home, which I saw just came on the market, which is clearly overpriced, in my opinion, based on the location of it, that property is going to sit. It's not going to get the same attention as a $700,000 home here, right? All of that matters. Anyway, I digress.
To just stick with the proud liberal section of the show. Interest rate dropped to 4.5% in Canada. Are we next? So talking about the Bank of Canada cut rates today to 4.5%. That's on a mortgage rate. But where are we at? Jeb led off the show talking about Dudley, and I think we had Mary Daly out here, or Loretta Mester out in the last 2 days saying, hey, we think cuts are coming soon. And Dudley was even saying should cut next week here in July. That's not going to happen. I think the market has priced in like a 2% chance of a cut in July. In September, our market odds now are at 98%. There is no August meeting. So the next meeting after July is September. We are likely to see a quarter. We're going to have a lot of data between then. A couple looks at CPI, a couple looks at payroll. We're going to have a lot of data. If it continues slowing, you could see a 0.5 point cut. The Fed likes to not do that because it implies that they're kind of panicking and behind the curve. They would rather do quarter. But September right now is baked into the cake. July appears to be off of the books, although there are smart economists saying that's what the Fed should be doing.
All right. Josh, we got, let's just go with this question here. Not sure direction. Don't know fully about this, but we'll try to address it. It says the UWM is a big wholesale lender out there, guys. If you're not familiar with the acronym, the UWM 15K interest-free loan, maths out really nicely. I wish I could qualify for it. Why is there negative news about it? So Josh, what is this interest-free loan they're talking about, and what is the negative news we're talking about?
So we just talked about affordability not being good. So the fun part is it makes great headlines. You get attention having your press release that you're doing this. It's limited to 80% of the area median income. Most people in most markets, especially high cost markets, if you're at or below 80% of the area median income, you're not going to qualify for the mortgage. So you're not user 007. You are not the only one who looks and goes, that would be an awesome program. Sure wish I could qualify. There are very few people that will. What are we talking? Midwestern markets, more affordable markets where you can make a decent amount of money at 80% of the area median and qualify for $150,000, $180,000, $200,000 single family home. Why does it get any time a lender does anything to lower the barrier to entry? So in this case, taking away the need for a down payment, people think, oh, here go the lenders again, trying to goose the market. They want to make loans. UWM doesn't make money doing these. So it is to get attention and to increase business, but this is essentially a loss leader. No one is doing this to make money off of it. And it's just very narrow, very niche-y. If you can get it, it's fantastic. Very few people can get it and buy a home they would want to live in.
All right. Willing is asking, can an earnest money deposit be gifted to a borrower via credit card or cash from a family? Josh.
So the credit card piece is interesting. A borrower can't take unsecured funds. So that borrower can't go and take a $10,000 advance off of their credit card and have that be good funds for their file. I don't think there's any limitation on a family member doing it. And if we're talking a conventional loan, and now FHA follows the conventional guidelines. So the gift, we no longer have to show the donor's ability to gift. We're not pulling the donor's credit. We're not doing undisclosed debt monitoring. We wouldn't know where the money came from. So the answer is yes. We actually have a listener to the show, reached out about 3 weeks ago. Next week, we're going to be closing on a nice little house in Florida. And he has the income and the credit. His fiance has the funds. So from the very beginning, the deposit was gifted from her. So because we didn't want to show bank statements to show her ability to give the gift, the wire went straight in from her account, matching a gift letter. And then the funds at closing are going to come from her and her parents. We have 2 more gift letters matching those funds that will be wired directly into escrow. So you absolutely can go that route.
All right, just another question from Willing. We'll just hit this one up too. What if you have a borrower who was self-employed and is now W-2 for 10 months? Can you use this income?
This one is easy. Absolutely. We never have a problem going self-employed to W-2 and being an employee unless you're a car detailer and now magically you're a dentist. God, it got me, Jeb. It got me. That's the highlight of Jeb's week.
I love it.
I need to tie my arms to my side or fix the light switch, one of the two. But that is almost always, unless it's a complete shift to something that you have no experience and you're getting some monster pay rate change, we can almost always, virtually always use the income when we go from self-employed to an employee. On the flip side, we have one that I just got a positive answer here. I just need to run the numbers of how they want to calculate it. Another listener to the show looking to buy a place out in Henderson, Nevada, and they were in the construction industry as a consultant, but an employee consultant. As of last August, switched over to being a consultant and 1099 pay. So we have a year of that history now. It meets the VA guidelines, but it's been a challenge getting that approved. Even though the VA guidelines say 1 year is eligible if it's in the same line of work, and we can show how they're getting their business, and even goes on to say that in certain instances you may be able to do it with less than a year. But long answer to a short question.
All right. Here's a really short answer to a short question. Does Josh do work in Arizona? Yes, he does. There's a referral link right there on the bottom of the screen in the description of the video. You can go there and get in touch with Mr. Lewis. Josh, this is an interesting take, and I agree with this. Unfortunately, it's not really an easy way to go about doing this. But Maddie says, I wish there was a way to track quality versus price. Houses with serious problems like foundation issues where sellers won't adjust high price and a listing just set. So there'd be a really cool way of looking at every listing comes on the market, like myself saying, oh, that property is overpriced. Market. Hey, see where it sells. Oh, that property's priced right. Oh, let's mark it, see where it sells. Oh, that property, that sort of thing would be very cool. You would say, hey, use AI to do it. Yeah, AI is great for a lot of things, but like, Zillow and all of these companies use AI to help figure out your price of your home. And guess what? It sucks most of the time. So it's not there yet.
Couple of thoughts here,
yeah.
Jeb. We bitch and complain about how much we hate the median price and analysis that uses that. But the FHFA home price index, the Case-Shiller home price index, those are paired repeat sales indexes. So it's the same house selling over time with time adjustments, and you're assuming similar quality. Obviously, we know the bed and bath count didn't change, but if a home sells and then 9 years later it sells, it's deteriorated, it's depreciated. Most homes are not maintained perfectly. So they're doing some of what you're asking for here. Now, if you end up with a major structural issue, no, but those really are one-offs. The market is going to account and adjust for that. And so when you were talking, Jeb, saying, hey, AI and being able to analyze the data, I think it was around 2014, we switched, Fannie and Freddie switched, and now everyone does it this way, from just giving you a PDF of the appraisal, and then you got to go in and look at it, that there's now an XML file that has all of the data, and Fannie and Freddie keep that. So they have millions of appraisals on file over the last 11 years. And importantly, it has those adjustments in there. And it says, so you would need an advanced level of AI that can go in and read what the problems are or the issues were with those properties. But it is possible, and it is actually used to a degree. We have a listener in Florida, so I'm going to just ask, can we help in Arizona? Helping someone in Florida to refinance their property. We got an appraisal waiver today. Well, how do you get an appraisal waiver? Is it just because they rely on an algorithm like Zillow? No, it goes back to that database and says homes in this neighborhood have actually recently been appraised, and we are comfortable that at 70% loan to value, that value is well supported.
All right. If you haven't done so already, find any value in the show this evening, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the show. Shows us that you support the work that we do here, the time we put in. And for that, we're appreciative. Josh, we have a low count tonight, 64 people. Very low.
72 for a minute. What did we do to chase those 8 away?
I don't know. But here's what I'll say. At this rate, it's making it hard to do this every week. Tell your friends and family. We need you here. GMass says, once mortgage rates go down, will housing prices skyrocket again, or will market crash due to more inventory? I don't think either of those are going to happen. If I'm honest, I think more inventory gives some of those buyers on the sidelines more opportunity. I don't think house prices can skyrocket just because I think affordability is still a major issue out there. So even if rates go down, I don't think they're coming down enough to help affordability out in such a way that people can then drive prices up in a crazy way. Just my 2 cents. I said the same thing in 2022 and the market went bananas again in the first part of it. So, could it happen? Sure. I think we're reaching that level where we see some flattening of prices. Even with lower rates, you just have more transactions taking place. And when I say not seeing major, that doesn't mean homes can't appreciate 1%, 2%, 3%. It just means we're not going to see year over year 8, 9, 10, 12, 15% gains. I don't think that's going to happen.
A couple of things that are important in that context to understand and think what's likely to come forward. People say, they have to crash, mean reversion. Everything reverts to the mean. There's multiple ways to revert to the mean. It doesn't mean that you get a crash, which is an instant mean reversion, but it's also important to note that mean has been trending up over time, going back 40 years. However you want to measure it, absolute home prices, but more importantly, affordability, percentage of household income going to the median priced home, that has trended up over time. So that will continue to trend up, and we're above that. We're above that long-term trend. So you can get down to that rapidly with a crash, or you can get down to that slowly over time as prices stagnate or remain relatively flat as incomes increase.
Yeah, you can get down with that. That's what Josh said.
Yeah, we can all get down with that.
If you want to get down with that, hit that like button. Okay, so Mikano. I can't tell if that's an A or no. I think it's an A. My offer just got accepted. Escrow is going to start. Can you please discuss any potential? Consider. I can't read my screen here, Josh. What's going on? There we go. Can you discuss any repairs that you would consider deal breakers? Can we fully trust the inspection process? So let's start at the tail end of that question. Can we trust the process? Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure to start, right? So find a good inspector, somebody that has good reviews online, somebody that was referred to you ideally, and has the proper certifications, knows what they're doing, been doing it a while, and trust the process. Here's the thing about inspections. Inspectors can't see what they can't see. Now, there are tools for them to check for water leaks and to check for, potential wet areas and that sort of thing, right? So there's ways for them to see certain things, but they can't see behind walls for the most part, and they can't rip the house apart. So with that, there is some areas that you do have to trust that are in good shape, even though they can't necessarily be tested. But what I would look for if I were looking for a property is look for the things that are going to cost you the most money to repair, right? You're looking at the roof. You're looking at the HVAC, right? The air conditioning, the furnace, all of that goes along with it. You're looking at appliances in the kitchen. Appliances are expensive. How do the appliances, do they work? Plumbing, electrical. electrical panel, has it been replaced? Has the plumbing been replaced? That sort of thing. Those are the things that I'm paying attention to. Cosmetic stuff, paint, carpet, flooring, less of a concern. All that stuff can be replaced. Yes, it costs money, but it's relatively inexpensive to do it versus the higher ticket items. Understand, as a home buyer, you're going to get an inspection. The inspection is going to show problems, right? You're paying someone to find problems. They're going to find problems. The question is, are they problems that are serious problems? Are they things that have changed over time? Code changes, are they health and safety items? What are they? Which category do they fall in, and how important are they to you? That's what you got to work with, but work with your real estate agent. Let them guide you through that process. Josh Lewis. We've got, I don't want to make this the liberal show for many reasons. But the most questions are coming from this person. So I'm going to click on it here. It says, I had a business that involved cash going to banks. I was scrutinized for any deposits over $10,000. Do you ask where down payments over 10K come from, Josh?
Not down payments. If you have the money, so we're looking for sourcing and seasoning. So if you have money in the bank, we closed a loan last week for a listener to the show, $152,000 sitting in their Schwab account. Not a problem. It's been there. The average balance has been the same month after month after month. Now, we have a threshold much lower than 10,000 for when we have to explain what deposits are. Generally, on a conventional loan, anything that is more than 1% of the qualifying income. So let's say your household income is $7,000 and we have a deposit of $8,000. That's arbitrarily where Fannie and Freddie set the line on what they're going to require us to document. FHA just modernized, or I shouldn't say modernized, they just brought their guideline in line with Fannie Freddie. So it's going to be the same. Previously, FHA was anything more than 1% of the purchase price, which is super arbitrary. I don't know what that has to do with whether it's a large deposit, but if you were buying a $400,000 house, anything larger than $4,000 needed to be sourced and seasoned and explained what that large deposit was. So large deposits, we got to know where they are. And from a lender's perspective, from an underwriter's perspective, they always fear the worst. They fear you went out and took out a loan. So you have a loan that now has a payment, and that's going to be problematic because we aren't aware of it.
All right. Victoria said maybe people left to listen to the president's speech. I don't know if the president's speaking, but I would be highly offended, Josh, that somebody left us.
Is he able to speak?
I don't know. To go listen to him. Because quite frankly, he's not going to be around very much longer. In many ways, I was wrong. As the president. So what is he going to do? He can't control anything at this point. And you're here trying to control your home buying process. This is more important to your future than that. So if you're here, congratulations. If you left, you're doing the wrong thing. You're focusing on the wrong things. Here, you can
focus on what you can control.
Yeah, you can actually control that. You can't do anything with those people. Okay, let's see here, Josh. Do we have any? Another question. How much are corporate investors affecting first-time home buyers? Are they still buying hundreds of homes? Less of a concern, right? Another media headline that's made out to be a way bigger deal than it is. Is it happening? Sure. Some markets, you still have some corporate investing, but it's typically happening in areas where the median home price is, or the purchase price is close to the median home price, if not below, because that's where, you can actually make deals work with regards to rents and that sort of thing. So it's not nearly as big of a deal as it was a couple years ago, but even in the big scheme of things, it's a very, very small problem.
We did an entire episode of the podcast, Jeb. So if you really wanted the answer, go hunt down that episode of the podcast and check it out.
There was some episode some headline at one point that they were buying 44% of the homes. Like, come on. Like, it was like the worst headline ever. And so none of that's true. I think they own less than like 1% of all the real estate out there when you calculate it. So, some markets, bigger problem than others, but for most markets, it's not a problem at all. Let's see here.
Got a good one, Jeb. Daniel says, I'm renting in Jurupa Valley, paying $3,200 a month. Do you see any correction coming in the Riverside County area? I keep hearing Fed will cut rates in September. You probably jumped in here late. Early in the show, we've gone through very, very likely. The market's pricing a 99% chance of a Fed cut in September. I actually have a small chance of a 50 basis point cut. So we're not likely to see July. We don't get a meeting in August, likely to cut in September. Also likely already priced into the market. We've seen over the last 90 days rates improve nicely. So it's less relevant. Are they going to cut in September, and what are they going to do the rest of the year? So we get a meeting in November, we get a meeting in December, and those cuts, if they are to come, are not yet priced into the market. So in terms of rates, this kind of goes back to Jeb, the question that we just answered. What happens if rates drop? So if we're at 6.9 right now, if rates are at 6.25 at the end of the year, that is very supportive of values as it makes homes more affordable. It brings more able demand back into the market. So on this one, Jeb, Riverside County and all areas like Riverside County, and we're going to explain what I mean by that, are more susceptible to a downturn than older, more established areas. So we have more recent buyers in that area, more use of low down programs like FHA, 3.5% down. So less time to accumulate equity, more likely to have just a less strong hand, so to speak. So does that mean that they're going to crash? No, it means that they're more susceptible to that than older, more established areas where people have lived for 50 years. And we talk about what, 40% of homes, Jeb, are owned free and clear. You don't have those same numbers in areas like that with a large volume of entry-level buyers.
Correct. Very, very, very. Yeah. And with that, I mean, again, you still have people in Orange County heading out to those markets just because of affordability. So, is that going to change with a little bit of a drop in the rate? I don't think so. I think, depending on what type of correction you're talking about, I don't think it would be enough for you to warrant, it wouldn't be a big enough drop to really change much, in my opinion. Not at this point. But it depends on where Riverside County, right, Josh? Palm Springs is Riverside County, isn't it? And then, you've seen, I think prices out there have stabilized a little bit more than some of the other markets just because they have a lot of VRBOs and some other things that have changed the dynamics of many of the potential, the cities out there and what they can do.
It's wild out there, Jeb, and it's not unique in this sense. But as California, Southern California's gotten more built out, so people get pushed out further in terms of affordability. There's large parts of the Coachella Valley that are not retirees and they're not vacation areas. You get out, further out towards Cathedral City, Indio, all that stuff. It's very similar to Phoenix, smaller lots, 2-story homes. And it's people with kids that, hey, I can afford a $485,000 house out there. I can't afford that in Los Angeles where it's $985,000. So definitely a changing market. People are adjusting and moving towards that. So it's still the truth of the matter is those more entry-level buyers who are newer home buyers and haven't had the benefit of 20, 30 years of appreciation to build up more equity, they are more susceptible to a downturn.
All right. Good stuff. And Terrace says closing this Friday. So congrats to you on that. Question from David. My wife received her green card and we're considering filing jointly. Will that impact my loan application status? I've always filed as head of household. So Josh, does it make any difference when, you have a citizen versus somebody with a green card going on an application together?
No. And even if obviously she can't go on a tax return if she doesn't have a legal status and a tax ID number or a social security number. Fannie, Freddie, FHA have gotten much more lenient in who is eligible, but someone who can go on a tax return is not going to become problematic for you in terms of purchasing. The only thing I would say in California and other community property states on government loans, FHA, VA, USDA, if she has any debts and she's not going to be on the loan, we would have to count any spousal debt, non-borrowing spousal debt against you in your debt to income ratio. But in terms of having both of you on a tax return, if you're self-employed, we'll need that tax return. If you own rentals, we'll need that tax return. Most borrowers, we don't get a tax returns, pay stubs and W-2s for employees. So unlikely to cause you any issue.
All right. With that, guys, if you're going through the loan process, you're trying to get pre-approved, you're approved, shopping for a rate, just looking for a second opinion, there's a referral link on the bottom of the screen to get in touch with our team, so Josh can actually walk you through that process and make sure you're getting a good deal. If you are, he'll tell you you're getting a good deal. If he's not, provide you with some numbers and see if it makes sense for you to make it, a switch over. But either way, we'd love the opportunity to guide you through that process and help serve you. So use that referral link if you need assistance. Josh, let's see here. I don't, just following up here on I'm reading as I do it. Somebody earlier said, hey, Jeb, you need glasses. Understand, I'm reading off an 8-inch screen that's like 4 feet from me. So my vision is pretty good for the most part. But when it comes to like some of these letters kind of looking the same and they're right beside each other, it's difficult to put them all together. Not to say that I don't need glasses, but just to help explain why I squint at this screen. Man, we just got the liberal show. He didn't pay attention to Biden's conference this evening, wanted to be here for us, which we appreciate. So we're going to answer the question.
They already knew what Biden was going to say. They memorized that playbook. They're here to learn this one.
There you go. With all the questions, they might have it here soon. How do you sell a house on a busy road? Is there a way to market it in a positive aspect, close to public transportation, easy access to a highway, blah, blah, blah? No, there's no easy way to market it. You market it just like you would any other property, right? You can't, trying to sell the idea that, hey, my house backs to a busy street and it's a good idea for anyone is crazy talk.
Easy street access. Kids can play in the street.
Yeah. You just try not to make it a topic at all, right? You don't bring it up. You don't talk about it. And there will be a buyer that doesn't care. I've sold many houses on busy streets. In fact, I sold one, it's probably been about a year now, that it was a corner of 2 busy streets, and it stared at a stoplight out of the bedroom. It was not an ideal property. And when I sat down in the listing presentation, one of the hurdles we talked about is going to be a problem. You're going to lose a lot of potential buyers because of that. They just don't want to be on a busy street. They said, no, it's not, because this house is great and all of these other things. Okay, you're right. I'm wrong. Well, guess what? Took a couple months to get it sold. And what was the feedback? Feedback was that it's too loud. The house backs to a busy street. So there's no way to hide it, the idea of it. You just got to price it where you think it's worth with that in mind, and focus on the positives of the property, right? Focus on, all the other things in being in a good neighborhood, close to schools, all of that, without ever mentioning the idea of the negative. Don't even bring the negative to mind, because they forget it. They don't notice it. It's just gone. Vanished.
Well, it goes back to your saying, Jeb, by emotionally and justify logically, they're going to come up with a way. I was driving through Huntington the other day, Jeb, and going down a fairly major street, nice neighborhood, expensive homes in there. And the house on the corner, the monument for that neighborhood sets back 3 feet into their yard and is hideous. Like it was done in 1968 and it's still sky blue. And I was like, how would anyone ever buy that house with half of their yard given up?
Bro, you're talking about the house off Garfield. And those people, when they painted their house, like it's probably been 3 years ago, decided to paint the exterior of the wall, which I'm not even sure that's their wall at that point, right? The inside of it
has the monument for the whole neighborhood on it.
Yeah, like they painted it the same color as their house, which was an awful color to begin with. And yes, that I would be pissed if I lived in that neighborhood. If I had to drive, I would go paint that thing myself back to the old color, because
I would look, if I owned that house, I would look in the title records and see if there's any claim on that. And I would just redo my front yard and it would disappear and there would be no more monument for the neighborhood.
It's not the front though. It's the back of their house. But nevertheless, yes, it sucks. If that's your house, I'm sorry. Yeah, you need to paint it. Let's see here. ZL, what would make you all leave Orange County? Ooh, if Prop 13 disappeared, probably leave. If the weather changed permanently, 100% would disappear. Those are really the two things. Weather,
so
probably
change in politics. Is that what I'm hearing, Jeff?
Weather probably more so than anything else. I'm here for the weather, right? Costs and prices are what they are. But yeah, the weather sucks. If the weather sucked like it does in, most of the country, you've got at least a season, 3-4 months out of the year where it's just not great. That would, if California turned into that, I would consider other places. But for here, for the most part, 11 out of the 12 months, pretty damn good. So the last 2 years, a little questionable because of the rain and wind and stuff that we had, which compared to most areas is nothing at all. I realize that, but it's not our typical weather. But Josh,
We've
what would
already
make
talked
you
about
leave?
this a couple times before on the show, Jeb. Every bad thing that you folks hear about California is true. Every awesome thing you hear about California is also true, and
Yes.
it generally outweighs the awful stuff.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's a lot of positives, and the headlines that you read are mostly exaggerated, is what I'll say. I'm from North Carolina, rural North Carolina.
I disagree, Jeb.
My North Carolinian family members often text me something, and they go, "Is this true?" And it's something about California, and I'm like, "It's kind of true. Like what you read is kind of true." But it's not the truth, right? There's a lot missing from what you're seeing there. So just
Jeb, when
understand
there's
that
a
other areas
wildfire in
it's
Riverside,
exaggerated.
do they call and ask if you and the family are safe?
Yes, they absolutely do. Yes,
Our
and
family
if it's
does.
raining in Northern California, they ask how we're doing down here too. They think it's just one
One little
small area.
community. It's all the same, right?
Ruger says
Ruger, not Roger, bro.
what is it? Ruger,
like the gun.
I like Ruger. Ruger. It is Ruger. Yes, you're right. Any advice on talking to a neighbor about their loud car and destructive teenagers? Touchy subject.
I would take the Ruger and go have a conversation with the teenagers myself.
No, in all seriousness, what's the best approach? It depends on how open these people are. Typically speaking, people don't like to be told what they can and can't do. And that's where the problem lies. Perhaps you send a letter that is no name on it, just making a point out there. Or, you just go talk to them face to face and say, hey, listen, unfortunately, loud car, got a baby, waking the baby up in the middle of the night. Is there anything we can do to help you out? What? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I say open line of communication is better than typically no communication at all, coming from somebody that doesn't communicate a lot of anything. When it comes to, personal stuff, I'm more of a just, I deal with it and move on. Yeah, Josh, I don't have the best advice here. I feel like this is a therapy question.
Yeah.
How do you talk to the neighbor?
Just make sure you have like a home gym and you're just jacked and you're always out in the garage listening to loud music to intimidate them back. Is that the way to do it?
I don't think that's right. I don't think that's good. I don't think
Dina suggests get an obnoxious barking dog.
There was a story here in Newport Beach of Bill Gross. Bill Gross was the owner, the founder of PIMCO, which is the largest bond company out there at one point. He's worth several $1 billion, tens of billions probably at this point. Him and his neighbor got into a pissing match because the neighbor had a monument in his backyard that was like obviously obstructing the view, or it wasn't nice to look at. I don't remember the whole story well. What Bill Gross did was he played the Gilligan Island theme song repetitively loud. I think it was Gilligan Island, right? Repetitive,
it was
loud, focused at their yard just to drive them absolutely bananas. Well, it actually went to court, and I forget, there was some sort of settlement. Like there was money paid and some whole deal out of the deal. So don't do that. Right? That just go the other direction, whatever that is. He followed up, does it mess with my home value? It only messes with your home value if somebody perceives it as a problem. If the kids are doing something to your property, to your house, to, whatever, then yeah, I guess that's a problem. If it's just that they're loud and they're kids and whatever else, time will pass. That'll change. No, probably not affect your value. But it's hard to say without actually knowing the scenario there. Anything you want to add there, Josh? We've been on an hour. It's kind of a lackluster show. And
Biden stole your thunder, brother.
I don't know that Biden was my problem. I've got it. It's just, we're just falling here, Josh. We're we've got almost as many viewers on the Educated Home Buyers we do on our channel, on this channel.
We might have to take a summer hiatus to drum up interest and start season 3 in the fall.
Yeah, maybe that's the answer. We take a couple weeks off, so we'll let you know what we decide to do, guys. But either way, we appreciate you. Appreciate those of you that are here, that show up every week, ask questions. Without you guys, it wouldn't be possible to even have a show. So for that, we're thankful. If you found any value, hit the thumbs up. Josh, why don't you give us some words of wisdom like you started the show?
What were my words of wisdom at the start of the show? I already forgot. My wisdom escaped me.
I don't really recall either. I just remember
it wasn't that great.
I told you to save them.
I'm not that wise. I don't have much to share. For the 70 or so of you who were here this week, we appreciate it. Hope you got some insights, and we'll see with some clarity over the next 90 days where the election goes, what the Fed does, how the economy trends, and we'll get some clarity, and we'll have a little better idea of what 2025 is going to look like.
Yeah, I'm going to hit one more question here, Josh. ZL just came back, says, are you legally required to disclose if you know neighbors are disruptive or into drugs? Bad neighbors seem to be able to affect values. If somebody is being disruptive and it's a problem, like disrupting you specifically, it's a problem. Yeah, you're supposed to disclose that. Drugs are a whole different issue. Rehab houses, drugs, that sort of thing. In the past, I had a house that was down the street from what we were told was a rehabilitation house. We were told we couldn't disclose anything about rehabilitation houses because there's nothing registered with the city. There's nothing, blah, blah, blah. So you don't actually know it to be fact, blah, blah, blah. So drugs are one of those things. You think they're doing drugs, they're doing drugs. It's one of those things where you don't really are supposed to go there because you're actually impressing upon who those people are and making, a judgment call and so on and so forth. So if you are in that situation, talk to an attorney, talk to your agent, have them talk to an attorney and go through it. But I know there's kind of a fine line there with what you can do and you can't do when it comes to sort of things. So either way, appreciate you watching. If you missed the first minute and a half of the video, I showed you back from 2014 to 2024 in different videos that I've been putting out this whole time. So go back and check it out. But until next week, guys, adios.